Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Marco Jure Show, everyone. It is Friday, September 26, 2025. Thanks again for tuning in to today's show before the weekend begins to hear all the relevant groundbreaking news here in America and around the world. The only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to follow the show. Hit that notification tab and share it. My appreciation to each and every one of you that have been doing that lately. So thank you very much. Let's get ready now, though, for the best hour that radio has to offer. Uncensored and ready to go. Let's not waste any time and get right into it. I want to start off by talking about what's happened with Jim Comey. Good old Dim Comey, right? It's only taken, 9 years to hold anyone responsible for the Russiagate coup that took place? Yeah, under his watch, by the way. Paul Craig Roberts has this article. He's finally been indicted, though, and he starts off by quoting President Trump. Now, there are things I agree with President Trump on. There are things I don't agree with. But this is something I absolutely 100% agree on. He said, one of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to is James Comey, the former corrupt head of the FBI. He's been so bad for our country for so long, and it is now at the beginning of being held responsible for his crimes against our nation. He's absolutely right. The Russiagate hoax, again, organized by Comey. We've got CIA Director James Brennan involved. Hillary Clinton providing the Steele dossier. Attorney General Merrick Garland, of course. No Merrick Garland. You have the media complicit with George Soros' money in an attempt to, again, delegitimize Donald Trump's first presidency. That's what it was all about. And that's what you heard about ad nauseum in the news media. Donald Trump's guilty. He colluded with the Russians. He swayed the votes away from Hillary. He stole the election from Hillary. She went on various talk shows saying the exact same thing. Donald Trump's illegitimate. He knows it. Russia collusion. Then they got their little mouthpiece, Adam Schiff from California, getting out there doing the same thing, saying he's got this overwhelming evidence that we never seemed to figure out what it was, because it didn't exist. Holding meetings in the basement of the Capitol, wasting $40-50 million of taxpayer money on nothing. Nothing was there. There was no evidence of any type of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin. But this is all you heard for 2 straight years. 2 straight years is all you heard about. Donald Trump had to cheat to beat Hillary Clinton. And it went on and on and on. And who was the face of it all? Well, it was James Comey. Comey took that information, along with James Brennan, by the way. And I'm sorry, it says John Brennan, not James Brennan. She's talking about James Clapper, I think is what Paul Craig Roberts is referring to here. But yeah, John Brennan, James Clapper, Hillary Clinton, no Merrick Garland, all these people are involved in this. Now, here's what's happening, though. They're just trying to go after him for perjury. That's it. How about obstruction of justice? Using fake dossiers? Bought for by British intelligence? To go after Donald Trump, the duly elected president of the United States. We're just going to go after him for treason. I just hope this doesn't become another show trial. Do I think anything's going to happen to him? Of course I don't. But it is at least somewhat good to see that someone at this level, this high-profile government official, is held accountable for his actions. Again, I don't think anything's going to happen to Comey. I think he knows it. That's why he's, playing ball with it, saying, let's go to trial. Okay, well, you lied. Clearly you lied. Clearly you fomented fake dossiers. Leaking classified information to the press. We know he's done that several times. giving classified information to people that don't have the right clearance to obtain it. Not that we've seen anyone go down for that. Look what happened to Joe Biden. Absolutely nothing. Now they used Joe Biden's mental and cognitive decline to, again, get him out of that. But look at this. This is where we are as a country. The leader of the FBI is creating fake dossiers, fake investigations, going after the duly elected president of the United States by the people. It's amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing to me. And again, how many people did that affect in 2020 for the election? Donald Trump's a criminal. Donald Trump's a fascist. All these things the media cook up for us. Seems never ending, doesn't it? Now, not to be, exclusive from the FBI, and again, how it was run afterwards when Christopher Wray took over. This isn't just the news. It's saying it's a bombshell. I knew this already. But 274 different FBI agents were sent to the Capitol on January 6th. Many later claimed they were political pawns. What could this all be about, folks? January 6th, the most infamous day in our country, according to the Democrats of the America Today. The FBI secretly deployed more than 250 plainclothes agents to the U.S. Capitol during the January 6, 2020 riot. So the question really has to be, were these some of the people that were breaking windows, attacking police officers, destroying things inside the Capitol building? Who are these people? Who were they? 274 people. Again, this was an operation so disorganized it unleashed searing frustrations really among many of the FBI rank and files that the FBI had lost its core competencies to obviously this woke agenda that plagues the country right now and allowed its employees to become pawns in a political war. Look at that. Your own FBI sending people to go out and make it look like they're committing crimes. Look at this. Look at this. And what happened as a result? We have 1,200 different people getting arrested for simply trespassing. Right? We're told it's an insurrection. They're trespassing now. Even though we have clear footage of people encouraging people to go inside the Capitol. You have Capitol Police holding the door open, giving fist bumps to people while they're walking inside. Just walking inside. Walking inside the building of which they pay the taxes for. They weren't harassing anybody. They weren't destroying anything. They're simply walking around. That's it. And of course, they're arrested as, domestic terrorists, insurrection. Insurrection, no weapons on them whatsoever. No one was anyone that you've seen been charged with insurrection from January 6th. Not one single person was attempting to overthrow the government that day. But now the FBI gave you a good show on the news, didn't they? You said, oh my God, they're taking down barriers. They're breaking windows. Look at how those MAGA people act. I mean, you could go online and see the footage. One of these people, obviously the face is covered. Face is covered, by the way. Too bad Gavin Newsom couldn't get his little bill there for federal agents to be unmasked to, address people in Washington, D.C. I'm sure he'd love that. They're all masked. They're all in, this black-clad outfits, right? Breaking things, people dressed like regular citizens, holding an American flag. They're going, what are you doing? They're getting shoved by these people. I want to know who these people are, by the way. They did this. And they should be held accountable. And again, what does this say for Christopher Wray? Not a whole hell of a lot either, does it? So now we have scores of FBI agents and personnel, many from the Bureau's premier Washington field office, sent anonymous complaints to the after-action team detailing how agents were sent into an unsafe scenario without proper safety equipment or the ability to identify themselves readily as armed officers to other police agencies. The report obtained by Just the News shows us. So the most persistent complaint was that the Bureau during the James Comey, Christopher Wray era had become infected with political biases and liberal ideology that treated the protesters from the summer of 2020 Black Lives Matter riots, at least they're calling them riots, aren't they? At least they're not saying they're mostly peaceful. But they were treating them far differently than those arrested in the aftermath of January 6th. Yep. There it is. Well, because there's an agenda here. There's an agenda here. We had people getting arrested for the BLM riots, right, that caused over $2 billion worth of property damage alone in the United States. 34, 35, 40 people killed in these riots. Civil unrest. And you have the blue state governors simply stand down. Gavin Newsom stood down. Tim Walz stood down. His wife later joked she loves the smell of, smoke in the morning? Burning tires in the morning? Something ridiculous like that? This is the person leading your state, by the way. Kamala Harris goes on Stephen Colbert's show, saying that the riots are going to continue. They're not going to stop. They're going to continue on. They should not stop, and we shouldn't expect them to stop, so long as there's civil unrest in the streets. Of course, manufactured again by them. Absolutely. So now it goes on to say the FBI should make clear to its personnel and the public that despite its obvious political bias, the ultimately still takes its mission and priorities seriously. Oh, of course they do. Of course they do. Why wouldn't they? They take their job very seriously. Organizing a phony coup against the government, getting innocent people arrested. It should equally and aggressively investigate criminal activity regardless of the offender's perceived race, political affiliations, or motivations, and it should equally and aggressively protect all Americans regardless of the perceived race, political affiliations, or motivations. Now, what's funny about this to me? Let's think about this for a second. Let's say you were at the Capitol that day. Let's say you walked inside. Let's say one of the Capitol Police waved the door open for you, said, come on in. You said, oh, why the hell not? I'm here. I'll walk inside. I'll look around. You walk inside. You leave. You didn't do anything. Then you get a knock on your door by the FBI to arrest you. Of course, for trespassing on Capitol Police, Capitol building grounds. This is the irony of the whole situation. The people that fomented this entire narrative that there was a massive riot, when the overwhelming number of MAGA patriots were simply standing there with their flags, the FBI goes out and they break windows, they break glass, they do all these things, tearing things down, breaking through barriers, rushing inside, of course, and what do we come to find out? What do we come to find out? The FBI then goes and arrests people they saw inside. They could identify. 1,200 people put in solitary confinement for doing absolutely nothing other than walking into a building of which they pay the taxes for. Did any of these FBI agents get arrested? No, of course not. Why would they be? Why would they be? So now the big question is, what happens next? What happens next? We know what's going on here. We know what's going on. We know that they were directed to do this. So what happens next? Do we indict Christopher Wray? Who was in charge of this operation? Now, according to Just the News, says FBI Director Kash Patel's team and recently turned over to the House Judiciary Committee and its special subcommittee investigating security failures and weaponization of law enforcement during the January 6th riot. So will this be something James Comer looks into? I don't know. I would imagine he would look into this. But we want indictments. This should be given to the DOJ. I don't want to just see another stupid committee where they're just talking back and forth. One side absolves the other of any wrongdoing. They claim innocence and nothing gets done. I'm sick of these testimonies. I want to see action done. I want to see indictments. I want the people in charge of this held accountable. And you should want that too. This is your government. You paid for that. So yeah, look at where we are here. The document has proven a bombshell to lawmakers, revealing for the first time that the FBI had a total of 274 different agents deployed to the Capitol in plainclothes with guns after the violence started, but with no clear safety gear. So they came with guns, they have no safety gear? Okay. Again, who in the crowd had guns? Who in the crowd had weapons to hurt somebody? We know none of those officers that died as a result of what happened on January 6th had anything to do with January 6th. And again, it's horrible that people die, of course, but one of them had a stroke and died, and they tried to claim that he was attacked and killed because of what happened on January 6th. Was anybody charged with murder that day? There were a couple people charged, I believe 3, with assault on an officer. But then you'd also have to look at the fact that the Capitol Police were shooting beanbags into the audience. Unprovoked, by the way. Absolutely unprovoked. So this was something clearly, and just me looking at this right now tells me this was clearly planned well in advance. This didn't just happen spur of the moment. This was planned in advance. We know that Donald Trump offered more National Guardsmen to be there that day to help Capitol Police. We know Nancy Pelosi turned it down. Obviously, something bigger was happening behind the scenes. And again, to just pin it on Donald Trump as fomenting a riot on the nation's capital. Didn't happen. Absolutely didn't happen. And there you go, folks. That's your FBI for you. Fomenting fake investigations, using fake dossiers, going after your political opponents, people that you disagree with. Yep. Even looking into Charlie Kirk, by the way, in his Turning Point USA. Did you know that? Yeah, the FBI was looking into old Charlie Kirk at the behest of the wonderful Biden regime that we all lived under. Yep, doesn't get any better than that, does it, folks? Now, let's move on to this. This is in the Washington Examiner. So, as you know, Trump spoke at the UN just a couple days ago. And it says here now that Trump pressures Turkey's President Erdogan to stop buying oil from Russia. And again, I think this is just wishful thinking. I don't think anything is going to happen as a result of this. But President Trump sat down and implored Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to cease purchasing oil from Russia as he pushes for a swift end to the battle between Ukraine and Russia. Not going to happen, folks. You know how I know that's not going to happen? Because they're about to enter a very cold winter in Europe. Do you think what are they going to do? Stop buying oil? What are they going to do? How are they going to heat their homes? What's going to happen? Hope they're chopping a lot of firewood if they don't do this. So it goes on to say, again, this is coming from President Trump. He said, I'd like to have him stop buying any oil from Russia while Russia continues this rampage against Ukraine. Now let's stop for a second. Trump met with Putin in Alaska. Everyone championed it. We said peace was on the way, hopefully. We want to get these two together, Zelensky and Putin, even though Zelensky isn't even the duly elected president anymore, and he suspended elections in his own country. So he's really a de facto president, just like the president of Syria right now. De facto president, not a real leader. But he's kind of the head of what's going on here. He's the person you see. How is it that Trump can go out to a sovereign country and tell them, we'd really like you to stop buying oil from these people? What? So we're going to ship our oil to them? How are we going to do that? We're not energy independent anymore. We don't have the port infrastructure to keep sending this kind of oil. Where are they going to get the oil from, folks? That's the big question. Are they going to go to Saudi Arabia? Where are they going to get it from? Also understand this. This is how I know this is a bunch of nonsense. Is that Turkey is a quote-unquote member, although not officially, a member of BRICS. So they're in with all these other countries. They're going to sit there and go, you know what, we're not with you guys, really. We're going to stick with the United States instead. Again, this is how this BRICS alliance is working. And I told you, it makes up roughly 44% of the entire global GDP. Whereas the United States makes up 23% of the world's global GDP. So which group would you rather be with? Yes, we're a major power. No one's doubting that. Yes, our economy's big, but look at what you have to do. You're going to take away from access to almost half of the world's GDP to go to work with a country that has roughly a quarter of it? And what's in it for Turkey if they do this? Now he's talking about they've been fighting, they've lost millions of lives already. First of all, no. That's not true either, by the way. They've lost millions of lives already, and for what? You know for what? Disgraceful. Well, first of all, Donald Trump has to know this. If I know this, Donald Trump has to know this. The Azov battalion inside Ukraine was shelling, killing, attacking the ethnic Russians in the Donbass region. That's the region of Luhansk and Donetsk. All right? That's what was happening. That was the truth of the matter. They wanted to be annexed by Russia. They voted on it. Putin declined, honoring the Minsk agreement, saying, no, we're not going to do that. It kept happening, keeps happening. And all Putin did was send in his army to help the ethnic Russians. They are Russian. They speak Russian. They believe they're a part of Russia. It's almost like the Armenians in the Artsakh region of Azerbaijan. They're ethnically Armenian. They believe they're Armenian. They speak Armenian, but they're in the territory of Azerbaijan. So naturally, if something was happening to your people, wouldn't you want to go in there and help them? Again, this isn't the first time things like this happen. These things happen many times in history. Certain different ethnic groups in certain regions, and things happen. They go in, the country goes in to help their people. That's what you saw there. It wasn't an invasion like you would think about, like in World War I, World War II, things like that. And so long as that shelling and everything was continuing, the Russia came in and said, okay, we're going to take this region then. If this is how you're going to be. We're not going to let our people be subjected and subjugated by this anymore. So the whole thing, Putin invades, Putin wants to go into Poland, Putin wants this, Putin wants... It's so stupid. It's actually asinine when you think about it. Because it makes no sense. If Putin really wanted all of Ukraine, he could take it just like that. And you also have to understand how Russia fights. They fight wars like this. They fight wars where they last years because it wears down the enemy. There is no chance in hell, no chance that Ukraine can beat Russia or take back any land, as Donald Trump is now all of a sudden saying after this entire time. There's no chance at all they can win this back. And it's stupid to even consider saying this. It's giving false hope. So while he thinks, we've lost millions, first of all, there's 1.7, 1.8 tops on the Ukrainian side that have died, and about roughly 150,000 dead Russians. So look at the difference just on the casualty list. Plus, you have 3 million wounded Ukrainians. You have roughly 800,000 wounded Russians. Not small numbers. I'm not trying to downplay that. But you got to look at what's happening here. One side is clearly winning against the other. And they're saying, well, look at the small bit of land because he doesn't want all of Ukraine. He wants Crimea, that's for sure. He wants Donetsk. He wants Zaporizhia, Kherson, and, what did I say? Luhansk and Donetsk. He wants those 4 territories, plus Crimea. Now Trump is trying to say reclaim all the land back that's theirs, including Crimea. It's not going to happen. That's where the Russian fleet is, for God's sakes. Not going to happen. It's simply not going to happen. And you know what? I don't know what really more to say about this other than it's really stupid. It is. It's stupid to consider that Ukraine is going to dictate how Turkey will buy from Russia. And I understand what Trump's trying to do. He's trying to stifle the Russian economy, which isn't doing that badly, by the way. They're really not doing that badly. The ruble's doing very well, by the way. So is the Chinese yen, by the way. Just to share that with you, that the BRICS economies are much more stable because they're actually going to be backed in a type of precious metal. Whereas ours is simply backed in, I don't know what. Nothing? Nothing anymore. What happened at an audit in Fort Knox, by the way? Anything? How come we dropped that really quickly when Elon Musk brought that up? And all of a sudden, Doge went away. So now we've got Turkey, a member of NATO, again, among its one of the chief buyers of Russian oil. Turkey purchases roughly 25% of the oil production exports, followed by China with 11% and Brazil with 11%. That's because they're all in the same group. They're all really BRICS affiliates or BRICS members. That's what it is. So, again, while Turkey is not an actual member of BRICS, they're still kind of an accessory to the fact that they're in with these countries. So the president praised Erdogan for staying neutral amid these negotiations to bring Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky together for a ceasefire meeting. And what I can tell you, that President Erdogan is very respectful by both of them. Everybody respects Erdogan. That's really respect. They really respect Erdogan. I do, is what Trump said. But again, this means nothing to me. This means absolutely nothing to me. It was then said, again by Donald Trump, that China and India are the primary funders of this ongoing war by purchasing Russian oil. But excusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy. I find this very funny, since we're funding the entire wars, the 7 front wars that Israel's now fighting. We're funding every single bit of it. We fund every single dime that goes into everything that they do in the Middle East. We funded all of it. And we still want to send another $6.4 billion. We sent $8 billion back in February. But look at this. It says we're going to be seeing about that. The NATO countries were disappointing in that regard, but they've been very amazing. They did, as you know, they went from 2% GDP to 5% GDP. So he's talking about, obviously, them paying their dues in the NATO budget. But again, all these countries are going through a recession. Their economies are in the tank right now. They're not going to be funding anything. And who knows if they can even fork up that money. That's their problem. So, again, I don't know. I don't know what to say about this. I think it's just a whole lot of bluster saying, look what I'm trying to do. I'm going to try to, work with Erdogan. I'm going to try to work with whomever I can to try to stifle your economy. I'm going to try to subdue what you're doing. It's not going to work. It's simply just not going to work. Putin's not worried about it. It's not going to happen. You know what else is not good? This is awful. This is in Russia Today. It says Iran to follow own nuclear path. Top energy official says, I told you this was going to happen. I told you that, again, the destruction of that whole meeting where the lead negotiator, Ali Shamkhani, was killed by Israel. Of course, other nuclear scientists. This was going to just destroy the entire negotiation with them. And it has. They weren't even working on a nuclear program. But here we go. The head of the Iranian Atomic Energy Organization, Mohammad Eslami, has blasted the West after the UN Security Council voted to reimpose sanctions on the state. And it goes on to say that Iran will continue its peaceful nuclear program regardless of foreign pressure. Yep, there it is. There it is. So you had a nation. Think about this. You had a nation that had no intention of creating a nuclear weapon. They were enriching to a certain amount, obviously for their own purposes. Didn't have anything to do with a nuclear weapon. And instead of coming to the table and negotiating for peace, for some type of treaty between the country, United States and Iran, Israel killed them. Israel killed the negotiators. We saw this again in what happened in Qatar between Hamas and the United States. So at this point, we could have had, first of all, couldn't have had that 12-day war, which would have been very good. But you could have had a great deal between the United States and Iran. We could have monitored their nuclear programs. They would have, again, ceased any plans to creating a nuclear weapon. And they would have even enriched uranium past 3.5%. So it wouldn't have been any level of concern for us. An amazing deal. Absolutely amazing deal. That would have been massively successful for Donald Trump. But now they're saying, his comments come as, again, this is the Eslami, is what he's saying. He says his comments come as Tehran announced it would halt cooperation on nuclear inspections now, following new sanctions imposed by the UN Security Council. Last week, Britain, France, Germany triggered the so-called snapback mechanism, part of a 2015 joint comprehensive plan from the plan of action, the JCPOA, between Iran and world powers to limit its nuclear program in exchange for sanction release. So now the move has now led for this reimposition of UN sanctions on Iran, of course. So it's going to try to, again, destroy their economy. And derail the recent agreement between Tehran and the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, to resume inspections of Iranian nuclear sites. So now you don't even have the IAEA coming in to inspect all this. So again, this becomes a major problem. Should they want to continue? Should they ever want to develop a nuclear weapon? And now they're not even working with us anymore. So we see how this just completely escalated. Now, Islami accused the West of these double standards, of course, and repeated violations of past agreements, stressing that Iran has always unilaterally fulfilled its commitments, and they've never fulfilled theirs. He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right about that. And I hate to say that, but that's true. We came to the table to work with these people. We told them we would set up a meeting. We're going to do this. We'll meet. Everything was put out there. They were ready to agree to it. And then we killed their negotiation. We killed their own citizenry. Now, some of you will say, well, Iran hates us. Jurace, come on. What are you talking about? They want to do harm to us. They want us all to die. Has Iran ever attacked the United States? It's a simple question. Has Iran ever attacked the United States? The answer is no. Does Iran pose any threat to the United States? The answer to that is no. That doesn't mean we shouldn't collect intelligence and understand what they're doing and be prepared for any type of attack. I'm not saying it can't happen. But we attacked a sovereign nation that did nothing to us. Did absolutely nothing to us. We told them we wanted to sit down for a peace negotiation. We killed their negotiators. We killed their nuclear scientists. Just before the meeting was supposed to take place. Who would trust the United States after this? Now, Islami also condemned the United States for consistently trying to harm Iran through sanctions, aggression, war, conflict, and, of course, conspiracy. He then dismissed Washington's recent calls for Tehran to dismantle its uranium enrichment program, stating that remarks from the U.S. officials are of no importance to us. We do not take orders from anyone. This, again, where is the unilateralism? Did you know that time and time again, at the UN, the United States ranks 193rd in unilateralism, which is basically an understanding and cooperation between nations, of economics, of just anything to do with how the nations interact with each other. We rank almost dead last every single time. We've got to stop doing this, folks. We've got to stop with this bully tactic. We could have had peace. We could have had that with them. We could have had negotiations. We could have even opened up trade with Iran. But it was all destroyed. All thanks to Israel. And I said this many times in the past. I'll say it again. Donald Trump would have been well on his way to achieving that stupid Nobel Peace Prize if he had pulled this off. I think even Democrats would have championed this. That's how positive it would have been. It would have made the region a much safer place. Then you have Israel go on, bomb them, and create this 12-day war back and forth of missile launches. You have a third of Tel Aviv destroyed now. You have you have parts of Tehran destroyed. I think you had, 600 dead Iranians as a result of this? The death toll for Israel was very minute, but still, Israelis died as well in this. They damaged 2 of their 3 ports in the country. They bombed the Haifa plant, refinery, rather, creating blackouts all throughout Israel. Did you ever hear about this in the mainstream media? Of course you didn't. Why would they tell you this? And, of course, they told you that it was Iran that was begging for the ceasefire when it was actually Israel. Yep. That's the world we live in, folks. It's a much less safer place now. Just wanted to share that with all of you. This is on the Wall Street Journal. It says Netanyahu says Israel's critics cave to pressure as his isolation deepens. So he spoke today at the UN. He had several diplomats, very many of them, probably hundreds of them, walk out. I'm looking at the picture now here in the Wall Street Journal, and very few people are in their seats. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I mean, I don't agree with anything Netanyahu's doing. I don't like him. But I don't know if I would leave them from hearing him speak, even though it's probably a bunch of nonsense. But the Israeli Prime Minister struck a defiant tone at the UN on Friday, lashing out at countries that recognized a Palestinian state this week. amid a crescendo of international criticism over the country's conduct in the war in the Gaza Strip. So now Netanyahu has been constantly pushing for tougher military law here and action in this enclave, of course. We know he's continuing this bombing campaign in Gaza City right now, bombing the remaining high-rise buildings. But then he starts accusing his critics of turning against Israel under pressure from their domestic populations. Rising anti-Semitism, and of course a biased media. I mean, it's so stupid. People see what's actually happening in the region. Now, the Wall Street Journal is not going to tell you this, of course. But the truth of the matter is, at the start of this conflict, just after October 7th, 2023, you had 2.4 million Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip. You now have 1.9 million. There's only 100,000. That's the latest figure I've got. 100,000 are said to have been killed. We don't know where these other 300,000 are. Or so. We have no idea where they are. Where are these people? Are they all dead? Are there some of them alive? Where are they? Under all this ruin. I implore each and every one to go look at pictures of what's happening in Gaza right now. The whole place in ruins. You have people living on tents on the sand, of which they're now bombing. Just the other night, it was confirmed 82 people in Gaza City are dead. We know people are getting shot at by the IDF in bread lines. We know that people that are trying to take the walks from wherever they are to get to one of the last humanitarian aid sites. Again, there were, I think, 400 before Israel took over with the Gaza Humanitarian Fund. Now there's only one left. One place in the entire region to go get food. I think the IDF throws something on the ground. You have men fighting over it. You have men being shot at as they're approaching this area in the Morag corridor. Nobody says anything about this. People getting shot in bread lines. You have these drone attacks, killing people. They even said 3 months. We haven't sent any humanitarian aid for 3 months to a group of almost 2 million people. When is this going to stop? People are seeing this. People have had enough of this. And people shouldn't be quiet about this. This is unacceptable. If the war is with Hamas, as they claim, then they need to conduct operations that target Hamas. You are targeting the Palestinian people. And that's not right. But this is how the rhetoric works. They say, they call them animals. They say they're all guilty of it. No, there's no innocent Palestinian. So that dehumanizes them. And of course, nobody gives a damn if 82 people die in one day. Or if there's over 100,000 to possibly 500,000 dead. Who knows? Only 100,000 are confirmed, though. We have no idea what happened to the rest of these people. Not a clue. We don't know if I highly doubt they've left. They're inside a border wall. We know nothing about what happened on October 7th. We have no idea how the Hamas got over the border wall. How our intelligence, their intelligence, couldn't see this coming. How any of these weapons made it into the region. How did this happen? How do they not know? Israel knows every single thing that happens and is sent inside Gaza. They know if a nail goes inside Gaza, they know exactly what's going in there. That's how in-depth it all is. And they've got a very intense border wall, by the way. Even if you're approaching it, they understand that something is close to the border wall. They can use their camera intelligence to look at it and view what's happening. Why was the IDF standing down for 6 hours that day? And what about the IDF that actually killed Palestinians that day? You didn't hear about that. I'm sorry, Israelis that day. Now, we talk about the 250 hostages. There's roughly 20 remaining, I believe. They believe there's 20 remaining. What about the 12,000 hostages taken by the IDF? Do they get released too? When the hostages are released by Hamas? What happens here? They were taking in people that have absolutely nothing to do with what happened on October 7th. People that hadn't been charged with anything, and they were taking them and, again, arresting them, putting them in prisons. No one says a damn thing about this. Why not? No one says anything about the killing, the starvation, the disease that's spreading. It's appalling. So again, while I can't tell anyone what to do, I don't know why you would sit there and listen to this, though. It's a bunch of nonsense. He's killed over 100,000 people. 100,000 people. Probably more. It's probably upwards of 500,000 are dead. He's talking about expelling the rest of them. Talking about how all of Gaza will become Jewish. There is a bigger plan to this, folks. And again, I hate to tell you all this, but this is the truth behind it all. There is a lot more happening behind the scenes of why this is happening. Why would you kill the Hamas negotiators sent to meet with the United States? Why would you do that? When we were intending to release the hostages and get them back. That was the whole goal behind it. And then you kill the negotiators. How do you think you're going to get back your hostages now? Because it's not about the hostages, folks. It's about the region. They want to control the region. They want this. They don't want any Palestinians in Gaza. They want them gone. They want them somewhere else. We don't know where, but they've talked about this openly. Sending them to Egypt, sending them to Sudan. I mean, what is this? And now, of course, we have talks about what's happening in the West Bank. Trump is saying he will not let Netanyahu take the West Bank. Well, hey, Donnie, they're already taking it. They've already made plans to build new settlements inside the West Bank. By the way, where settlers, I should say, are attacking Arab Christians, by the way, setting fire to the St. George Cemetery, destroying churches. Yeah, go search up pictures of churches inside Gaza. Yeah, go look inside of them, see what's happening there. These drone strikes are very precise. They know what they're doing. I've talked about this with you before. They know exactly what they're intended to hit, and what they want to hit. And the go-ahead on that is done by a supervisor who assesses it prior to it happening. So when he says that these nations are under pressure from their domestic populations, everything's anti-Semitism with them. And a biased media. It says people see what's happening. People have had enough of what's happening. And it's absolutely appalling to see this and not say anything about it. Again, I told you yesterday, as Christians, as Catholics, as pro-life, we should be condemning this behavior. We're not talking about going after terrorists. It's not what's happening right now. We need to stand up for what is right. And what is right is that you're not killing innocent men, women, and children. That have nothing to do with what happened on October 7th. And the whole collateral damage nonsense, it's ridiculous. These are targeted attacks. They killed a 6-year-old girl a couple weeks ago who was bringing water to her family or people that she was in a tent with. I don't even know. And they killed her. 6-year-old girl bringing water. How do you screw that up? How do you miscalculate that? How can it not be intentional? And anytime they're called out, it's always a mishap. It's always a mistake. Oh, we didn't intend to do that. Or no, that didn't happen. We talk about accountability, folks. There needs to be accountability for this. And this slaughter needs to stop. And the idea that we are funding every single thing that is happening makes it even more equally appalling, I think. So I'm not shocked people left. I have no respect for Netanyahu. I really don't anymore. I used to like him. I used to think he was a good leader, too, years ago. Then I started doing my research on it, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here with this Greater Israel nonsense? What is this? What is this about? Do you know that Netanyahu, by the way, is going around and telling people that, and this is through Tucker Carlson, he says, and again, this is what he wrote, or excuse me, this is what he said on Glenn Greenwald's show the other day. He said, Bibi's running around, this is a fact, I'm not guessing about this, because I have talked to people, he said it too, is running around the Middle East, his region in his own country, and telling people point blank, just stating it, I control the United States. I control Donald Trump. He's saying that. So imagine that. Then Trump comes out and says, well, we're not going to let him take the West Bank. I won't allow that to happen. We've given Netanyahu everything he's wanted. And more, probably. And we're continuing to fund this war. I told you before, you want these wars in Ukraine to end? In the Middle East? Stop funding them. Can't do much without money. But yet here we are, yet again, funding more wars. But the audacity to go around saying that. Now, do I know if Tucker Carlson is telling the truth? I have no reason to think he's lying. I've heard other statements by Netanyahu, not exactly like this, but of, what do I want to say? Speaking illy of the United States. I'll just put it to you that way. So we have to think about this. Who's controlling who here? And what is the end result of all this? How do we get through all this? I don't think we should give a shred of any type of aid to anybody, to be honest with you. Especially with the way the economy is right now. And speaking of the economy, this is in the Wall Street Journal as well. It says that the economy had a strong spring. This is what the latest revision shows us. So that's some positive news, right? We got 3.8% annual rate. We always want it to be between roughly 3 and 5%. That's usually showing strongs of a growing quarter. So the business investment in software and the equipment powering artificial intelligence is also helping, which they're putting a lot of money in, by the way. And of course, that's going to destroy many jobs. But the spending on that is very high. So that's looking good on that aspect for them. So that's why you're seeing a lot of that. So spending on intellectual property like research and development and software rose at a revised 15% annual rate, the most since 1999. There we go. Which economists touted as a positive sign for future growth and productivity. Well, if nobody's working these jobs, how's it going to be a positive overall? Or maybe for that company, but certainly not for the worker. Americans spend more than initially estimated in the second quarter on services such as restaurants, healthcare, insurance, and transportation. Services spending drives the lion's share of the U.S. economic output. Yep, that's true. We spend roughly 70% of our GDP in America comes from consumer spending, basic commerce. But what's happening now, what happens when you start seeing people minimizing what they buy? Because that's happening too. That's going to start happening. I do believe it will happen very soon. So overall, the government now estimates the GDP increased by 3.8% seasonally and inflation-adjusted annual rate in the second quarter. Up from an initial estimate of 3% in July and later updated to 3.3%. That was the strongest quarterly growth in nearly 2 years. So we've got to look at this for a second, though. We see this. The GDP looks good. Okay, that's fine. I'm glad the GDP looks good. But right now we've got a world debt that is $337.7 trillion at the end of the second quarter. We hold $37 trillion of that right now, which is growing exponentially. And of that sum, of that borrowed money that we owe to the privately owned Federal Reserve, but now we want to give, look at this, we're going to talk about this momentarily. They want to give $20 billion to Argentina to help, what's his name? Melee or whatever his name is. And they want to give another $6.4 billion to Israel for their seven-front war. Meanwhile, we have the dollar value is down 10% from the start of this year. We're seeing the drop of the weakening of the dollar right now. And again, lowering interest rates is only going to increase that, by the way. So when we talk about lowering the interest rates, just know the dollar is going to collapse or at least weaken as a result of that. You've also got home mortgages stalling in August due to higher mortgage rates. So people aren't buying homes as they ought to in certain areas of the country. Think Florida, think New York, California, the Northeast, areas like that. But we also have retail hiring falls to the lowest level since 2009, which is the height of the Great Recession, which I'm sure many of you can remember. Again, which means more people are either not buying or they don't have the inventory for people to sell these products. One of the two. Why hire more people if you have, again, less people buying or if you have less inventory to sell? So we got to keep an eye on that. So can we look at this and say everything's honky-dory, that we are at 3.8% GDP? Of course not. Of course not. Now, we want to see GDP increase, so don't get me wrong on that. But the idea that this is just an indicator that everything's strong, everything's good, we're moving in the right direction is simply not true right now. When you had 4 years of the Biden regime where we had basically no growth in the government, it's starting to catch up to us right now. Now, Thursday's revisions point to an even sharper whipsawing from contraction, think about, again, the 4 years of the Biden regime, to growth in the first half of this year when Trump took office. The United States economy shrank at a revised 0.6% in the first 3 months of this year as companies rushed to get ahead of the Trump tariffs by ramping up imports. Trade can cause swings in quarterly growth because of the way GDP is calculated. So the second quarter growth, in turn, also reflected a drop in imported goods that surged earlier in the year. So that makes sense. And yeah, we saw countries like Japan, among others, sending about 13.8% less in exports to the United States that we import. But now we have new government data estimates that showing companies spent $40.4 billion at the seasonally adjusted annual rate on these structures in the second quarter, up more than fourfold from $9.5 billion at the start of 2020. So while things are growing in certain areas, they're lagging in many others. And again, when you see other world economies that are struggling, that are in recessions, they can't make ends meet, that's going to catch up to all of us, folks. That's just the truth of the matter. Because, again, that's going to affect their economies because they're not growing. They're receding. So while I wish I had something a little bit more positive to say on this, I wish I could say something more positive on this, it's not as good as it seems. I know you've probably turned on the news. Look at this, 3.8%. Great. Everything's fine now. Simply not true. Simply not true. For the reasons I outlined for you. You know, I always tell you, make sure you have money stored. Make sure you're doing that. It's very important that that happens. Make sure you have backup food, backup water, just in case anything happens. Anything you need to be self-sufficient. I always tell you to do that for a reason. All right, we got a couple minutes remaining. Let's go over this article. I got to jump around a little bit here. I was going to talk to you about California trying to keep oil and gas firms from leaving the state. That's Gavin Newsom's latest attempt to kind of fast track these approvals for 2,000 new drilling wells as companies are fleeing the state en masse. Gee, I wonder why. Yeah, thanks to Gavin Newsom. You can add that to the list of failures for whatever he's trying to do in that state. So he's trying to save face. He's trying to be the hero. It's not going to work, though. A lot of these companies are moving to greener pastures. And they can simply just drill from headquarters elsewhere. They don't need to be in the state of California. Anyways. Oh, and by the way, we had Scott Bessent, right? U.S. investments in Argentina may hinge on election results. There we go. So they want to give $20 billion now. I mean, it makes no sense, but they want to give $20 billion to Melee. Look at this. Argentina has the tools to defeat speculators, including those who seek to destabilize Argentina markets for political objectives. But Bessent suggested that private sector support for Argentina could hinge on whether Milei's party gains more legislative power after. So what are we involved in this for? That's what I want to know. What we're broke, first of all. We're just going to print $20 billion and send it to Argentina? It's absolutely appalling. And again, you and I pay for it. And the interest, by the way. No wonder why we're $37 trillion in debt. This is the Daily Star in the UK. It says here, Keir Starmer's ID cards sparks backlash over 420,000 signed petition within hours. So they've had enough of the digital ID phenomenon. They know it leads to absolute control and globalism. But there's been this resistance to the scheme that has intensified as opponents raise alarms over privacy concerns and the risk of potential data breaches, despite recent surveys indicating most of the public back the introduction of national ID cards. That is the stupidest thing in the world if people are really backing that. But now there's been this parliamentary e-petition that's already attracted now hundreds of thousands of signatures against this ridiculous policy, starting with 50,000 people in just 40 minutes. By the end of the evening, 420,000 had signed the petition. Yep. But the House of Commons data revealing the number appeared to originate from overseas. Well, we understand what that means, folks. I've talked to you about this in the past. What does a digital ID do? It's simple control. That's all it is. Now you say, well, I have an ID. What's the big deal? It doesn't matter. Well, if everything goes digital, right? If there's no hard copy of anything, if everything goes digital, what could possibly be the problem, right? Well, the problem, of course, is if you lose electricity, power, or what have you. And that's not the only reason, too, by the way. If something is online, it's more easily to be hacked. You can get into it. And if the government has access to it, they can do whatever they want to your digital ID, to your wallet, to track you, and all these other sorts of things. So it's really enslavement is what it comes down to. Now, I know some people are rolling their eyes. Yeah, right, come on. The government's going to just track me all day. Come on. Yeah, they will. And they can. If they do this, if they're stupid enough to do this and not have actual hard currency. But this is Keir Starmer. Yep. Oh, the great Keir Starmer. And this is what he's saying now. Take a listen.
And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
So, this is great. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have a digital ID. Doesn't this sound a lot like COVID, folks? If you don't show me your COVID passport or health passport, or whatever they try to call those stupid cards, you can't come into the store, or if you don't wear your mask, you can't come into the store. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to include everything into one. Your health, your data, your banking, your ID, whom you are, all into these programs, right? These apps or whatever they are. And of course, it's free of charge, by the way. Way to get a better deal. Come on, folks. It's only just turning over your complete sovereignty. And the whole idea, I got nothing to hide, nothing. It has nothing to do with that. You will be surveilled. You will be watched. Everything will be controlled. Again, if they want to take more money out of your bank accounts, we're going to tax you now. A little bit more. Do you have any say in that? The government will just come in and take your money out. You have no hard data. You have no hard currency. They can take whatever they want out. They can cancel it. They can close it. Because now it's, again, everything is run by the government. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Now, their ultimate goal is to get everybody chipped with these devices, not keeping them in cell phones. That would just be complete control. But they've got a brick card and a brick card wallet. Look at this. They're showing a preview of it. It's saying the first and last name, right to work, right to rent. So what? If you don't go through with this, you can't rent a building, can't rent a house, can't do anything. Brick card wallet, right to work, permanent. Proof of age, over 18, driver's license, has all that great information on it. And let's use the UK. Let's not go any farther than the UK. Let's use them as an example right now. Let's say you're one of these people protesting what's happening in the war in Gaza, which we're seeing right now in the UK. And the government doesn't like that. And they send, their police after to arrest you, which they have been doing, even elderly people. They've been doing that as well. Simply arresting them for holding a sign that says, stop the war in Gaza, free Palestine, whatever it says. I don't care what it says. It doesn't matter. Liking a Facebook post. I saw this with a mother and her daughter, a teenage daughter. She viewed it. She viewed a post on Facebook that the government doesn't like. And they went there to confiscate the phone. Because she shouldn't be doing that, folks. Don't you see that? Now, let's say you get, a little uppity with the government. Let's say you challenge the government. Let's say you protest the government. All the government has to do is come in and shut that off on you now. Shut your ID off, so you have no right to work. You have no right to rent. Doesn't even say anything about right to buy. I don't know that you can do that anymore in the UK. And again, you have no access to your wallet. So you can't do anything. You can't buy anything. You can't purchase anything. So how are you going to survive? This is exactly what they want. They want more government control. They want more leverage over you. And this is the way they can do that. By bringing every single thing together to come in under the state. That's it. That's all it is. That's all there is to it. Yep. No more. So we should be rejecting any type of national ID card. Anything digital, by the way. Digital health passport, whatever they try to do. That shouldn't be a thing. Digital ID. Nope. Digital, any type of banking that's simply just digital. I know people use, their e-wallets or whatever the hell they have on their phone. Everyone should have the option to have a secure bank account with your own hard data information. That's all I'm trying to tell you. Anything more is simply just handing over everything, your sovereignty, your ability to be free in your own persons, over to the government. And you're seeing it happen in the UK. Right under Keir Starmer, right? Who cares so much about what's happening in Palestine? All right. I went a little bit overboard today, but I'm going to go over my last article. I implore you to read about what Scott Bessent said about Argentina and, of course, what the schmuck Gavin Newsom's doing in California to help from keeping his economy from collapsing even more. I think oil in California makes up, what does it make up, 11% of the overall GDP in the state? Yeah, look at this. There are 13 refineries currently operating in the states. When Valero and Phillips 66 shut down theirs, the number will be down to 11. I live right by the Phillips 66, by the way. That's really sad. The state had 40 different refineries in 1983. Today, they are going to have 11. Thank you, Gavin Newsom. Thank you so much. Wonderful governor. All right, final article. I don't talk about the ladies on The View very much anymore. I used to do that a lot. I haven't recently, but this came up and I couldn't resist. So we'll start off the weekend with hopefully a laugh or two. This is in Slay News, and it says that Whoopi Goldberg calls for Trump's removal with the 25th Amendment over a UN speech. By the way, when he was speaking, the teleprompter went off. He had to just simply speak on his own. But Whoopi Goldberg didn't like that. She didn't like that at all. And it starts off by saying on Wednesday's episode of The View of Ignoramus Women, co-host Whoopi Goldberg called for invoking the 25th Amendment to remove Donald Trump from office. Now, let's stop for a second. The 25th Amendment is in place so the administration, the cabinet of the president, and or the Congress can invoke the 25th Amendment to remove that president from office should they not be able to fulfill their duties. There is nothing that would indicate that Donald Trump is unfit to fulfill his duties. Certainly not from any type of mental or physical standpoint. He's not Joe Biden. And by the way, where was she when Joe Biden was out there shaking hands with the air, getting lost on stages, hanging out with the Easter Bunny and being directed around? Where was she then? Nowhere to be found. So anyway, she makes this fiery address, about what he did and everything. And she claims that, the all bullcrap propaganda show, that's her show, that the world is no longer laughing at America because under Trump, because they're really concerned for us. I didn't know that was happening. Did you? The rest of the world is concerned for us? I never heard that. This is news to me. These women make up stuff. It makes no sense at all. And, we should laugh this off. indefinitely. But it got worse. It got worse. She couldn't figure out which amendment was the 25th Amendment. Take a listen.
I want to say this about Americans. 76% of Americans say Trump doesn't deserve to win the Nobel Peace Prize. So he's...
The country doesn't think that. The Swedes don't want to give it to him, and they're the ones who have it.
Exactly.
If he ends the war in Ukraine, he should get the Nobel Peace Prize. Let's root for him.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, I just...
Listen, it's not happening at the moment.
Yeah.
What have any of the ladies on The View done for peace, by the way? I'm curious about this. Have they done anything that made anyone's life better? Has anyone worked for peace? Have they volunteered? Have they done anything in their lives that would indicate they're working towards world peace? Now, say what you will about Donald Trump. At least he's trying to get people to speak together. He's trying to sit people down. Use diplomacy. Does that mean I agree with everything he's done? Of course not. I don't like the way he's handled what happened with Iran. I don't like the way he's allowing Israel to run roughshod over the Middle East. But at least he is trying to speak to people. In many of these regards. He's trying to bring people together to stop war, to stop conflict. And they have the nerve to just get on there and say, well, 76% of Americans don't agree with that. They don't really care about it. What have they done? Seriously, what have they done? They've done absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing for the world. And they're sitting here criticizing Donald Trump.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, listen, it's not happening at the moment.
Yeah.
He had an opportunity to do so much more than he offered them, and they don't consider him to be serious anymore. And I'm worried. What is the amendment, the
23rd?
23rd Amendment, when people start to say... 24th. It's when they say, maybe we should talk about,
It's actually the 25th Amendment.
We were getting closer with every number. We were getting there.
I didn't know what you meant. You meant when you start questioning someone's competence.
Well, they question Biden's competence. If Biden had acted like this, I'd have said, yeah, take him and sit him down somewhere.
Yeah.
But
first of all, Joe Biden was completely mentally out of it. Anyone could see that. The way he acted during the debates, just in general, the way he acted. Clueless. Had no idea where he was half the time. Making up words. I mean, you saw the campaign. It was scary. But even the lawyer on The View, that would be not too Sunny Huston, didn't he realize she was talking about the 25th Amendment, which, again, I told you would remove a president whose mental facilities are simply not intact. And the cabinet, and of course Congress, would have to come to the agreement that they should remove the president from office because he's unfit to serve. So she starts by saying the 20th. She thinks it's the 20th Amendment, which is the changing of the beginning and ending of the terms of president and vice president from March 4th to January 20th. I don't think she meant that one. I don't think she was talking about keeping Trump in office till March 4th. Then Sunny Huston goes, the 23rd? She says 23rd? Why would she say the 23rd Amendment? Which allows D.C. the right to grant their district electors in the Electoral College to making it akin to a state. What would that have to do with anything? Then she says 24? She's just guessing. She has no idea what she's talking about. None of them do. 24th Amendment, what does it do? Prevents states from using a poll tax or any other tax to vote in federal elections. Yeah. Signed into law during the Civil Rights Act. What does that have to do with what she's talking about? It was pretty clear she was talking about she should remove him from office if he conducts a poll tax or if he changes the date of the beginning and ending of the presidency. These women think they're geopolitical scholars, I think. I mean, I don't understand it. Who watches that show, by the way? Who watches The View anymore? I don't know anybody that does. Thank God for that. Oh, the women on The View never let down. Whoopi Goldberg, not too Sunny Huston. It's great. Joyless Behar. They're a good crew. I like them. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Hope you'll share with some friends. Hope you learned a lot. And again, hope you have a great and blessed weekend ahead of you. We'll be back here on Monday for the next Marco Dre show with more information coming to you. I always try to bring you the best information. Until then, keep your house in order. Stay safe out there. Have a great rest of your weekend, and God bless each and every one of you. Take care.